All right, so this is part 2 for the Playing with Keywords Astra Militarum Imperial Guard series. So the sister document for the Road to 9th Edition series. So basically everything from now on isn't really to be taken as seriously as the original proposal for the Inquisitorial Stormtroopers, so that's probably the only one I would actually implement. But these are just some more fun ideas, some things just to maybe make Genestealer cult detachments with Brood Brothers maybe a little bit more reliable, and then just some other fun ideas I've just thrown in there as well that you can mix and match some keywords and play around with stuff. So basically we'll start off with the OG. So the Genestealer cult detachments, so basically Brood Brothers. So essentially you can now take Brood Brothers directly into a Genestealer cult detachment. So that saves you some CP there. So essentially what we're doing is we replace the Imperium keyword with Tyranids. You replace the Astra Militarum and or the Militarum Tempestus keywords with Genestealer cults. You're replacing the regiment and or the Tempestus regiment keyword with Brood Brothers. Brood Brothers characters may not be given any relics and cannot be chosen as your warlord. So essentially, again, you do want to obviously take Genestealer models as your main force. These guys are more supplementary. So furthermore, infantry models in the Brood Brother detachment increases their leadership characteristic by 1, and they gain the unquestioning loyalty ability. Units in Brood Brothers detachments do not gain the the cult ambush ability. So essentially we've just simplified the whole Brood Brothers idea. So now, as I said, you can now save some CP from taking a separate detachment by just taking the units directly in it, and we've cut down about several paragraphs to simplify the thing entirely. The one thing we have lost, though, is access to auxilia units. So I know that in my original document I had suggested that we can order Militarum Auxilia units, but I just feel like the crossover between a single company commander being now able to order Militarum Tempestus and auxiliary units is a bit much, but that is something unique that I do want to have for Brood Brothers, just to give them something a little bit different than what normal guard get, but just not give them too much. So essentially what this change unlocks, so Brood Brothers units would now be able to take cult reinforcements, detonate concealed explosives, devoted crew, extra explosives, hypermetabolism, lurk in the shadows, and rigged to blow stratagems they'd be able to use now, just by changing these keywords and putting them directly into the Brood Brothers detachment. They would also be able to now benefit from psychic stimulus and the might from beyond psychic powers. So that's another 2 things they'd be able to benefit from now. And as I said, because we've now given them the same keyword, a Astra Militarum officer can now actually order a Militarum Tempestus unit because they now share the same keywords. And a Tempestor Prime could now obviously command a Astra Militarum unit when previously they could not. So essentially this represents, rather than them now having become from separate organizations, they're now all devoted to the singular 4-armed emperor, as we all know it. So they can now willingly order each other because they are now fighting and serving for the one and same goal. What this does restrict, so pretty similar to everything else that we've been talking about in this little series spin-off here. So they cannot take any form of Astra Militarum regimental doctrines, cannot take any kind of unique characters, cannot take any kind of relics or stratagems. The data sheets are solely limited to regiment and Tempestus regiment units, so they cannot take any kind of advisors or auxilia. And you can no longer ally with any Imperium factions or receive benefits from their abilities. So no more cheeky Inquisitor that we've previously seen before, or Imperial agents that I've also seen people try and do before. Next, moving on to Imperial Knights. So Imperial Knight detachments, we're going to add something called Knightly Orders. So we've heard a lot about men at arms throughout the Imperial Knights Codex. Some of their books that they talked about as well. They have all these like little soldiers that are sworn fealty to them, that go around and support them, do all the infantry legwork basically. But there's no way currently to add them in game. So the easiest way to represent them, again, would just be some kind of Astra Militarum Imperial Guard units, being the most standard Imperials, like human soldiers in the setting. So what we've done is Questor Imperialis. So no Questor Mechanicus, unfortunately, but you guys can now ally with the Adeptus Mechanicus Codex directly, so that's fine for you. So Questor Imperialis units, instead of being taken in the usual super heavy auxiliary detachments or super heavy detachments, can instead be taken as a knightly order. When taken in this manner, you may swap out any HQ slots in a patrol, battalion, or brigade detachment for a Lord of War slot, provided those knights have been given the character keyword. Otherwise, you may swap out any heavy support slots for a Lord of War slot. So that basically gives you anywhere from 3 to, 7 slots to play with, depending on which kind of detachment you choose. Any force organization slots not swapped in this way may then be filled with men-at-arms. So what are men-at-arms? So men-at-arms replace the Astra Militarum and or Militarum Tempestus keywords with Imperial Knights, Questor Imperialis, and men-at-arms. So replace the Regiment or Tempestus Regiment keyword with the Household keyword. Men-at-arms characters may not be given any heirlooms of the noble houses. It'd be a bit silly to have them with a giant Gatling cannon, and cannot be taken as your warlord. Men-at-arms units do not gain a household trait. So this one's fairly simple. Unfortunately, Imperial Knights don't really have many abilities that could specifically apply to these units. However, what we've done is we've allowed Imperial Knights to essentially save some CP by taking some additional Imperial detachments so they can focus purely on a mono Imperial Knight detachment, while also now allowing them to have smaller units that can hold their home objectives while they focus on taking their Imperial Knights fight to the enemy. So someone could now, say, for example, take 3 big knights and then 500-600 points of actual infantry or vehicles to hold a backline, and then they push up with that. So essentially it just opens up actual Questor Imperialis units to still be a mono faction, while also giving them the actual ability to go for the objective game now. Lastly, this one's more of just a very fun one. We're not using any Codex Astra Militarum units anymore. Funnily enough, while doing research for all this, it looked pretty interesting for the Sisters of Battle, so the Adepta Sororitas, to get Frateris Militia. So to represent them, we're actually going to use Chaos Cultists, funnily enough. They kind of represent the same thing in a Chaos Space Marine detachment. So, yeah, we thought maybe we can port that over, change a few keywords, and let them be added to the Adepta Sororitas as their little cheap disposable infantry. So what we do here is Chaos Cultists. They replace the Chaos keyword with Imperium. You replace the Mark of Chaos and Legion and Heretic Astartes keyword with Adeptus Ministorum. And then lastly, you replace the Chaos Cultists keyword with Frateris Militia. Any instance of Chaos Cultist and Chaos Champion referred to in that data sheet is now replaced with Frateris Militiaman and Militia Leader. So they would be able to benefit from now Celestine's Saintly Blessings ability. They would be able to benefit from a Missionary's War Hymns and Word of the Emperor abilities. They would be able to benefit from a Preacher's War Hymns ability. They'd be able to benefit from the Hospitalis Medicus Ministorum ability. And they would be allowed to take, they would allow Adepta Sororitas to actually have a second troop choice as a cheap objective holder, rather than them only having the access to Sisters of Battle, Battle Sisters. What this does is obviously they lose a lot of synergy with Chaos Space Marines. as well as any associated character buff stratagems and psychic powers that you could get in that original codex. So basically, you just chuck in a cheap 5-point unit into the Sisters Codex that can hold their backline, whilst they can focus more of their points onto the actual fighting units themselves. So it could be a little fun to have, a little thematic, something again that you could use for Crusades and narrative games. So yeah, just something to think about. That one's more of a fun option than an actual serious option. So yeah, thanks very much for listening. I'll keep the link in the description, as I said before. If you have any comments or anything, definitely let me know. Yeah, happy to read them. Thanks very much.